Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Today, we have Elliot Kallan, who has 40 years of experience in wealth management and financial advice. His company, Prosperity Financial Group, helps with optimizing your personal finances, for example, monthly cash flow and taxes. This focuses on retirement planning without compromising your current quality of life. We will cover a tragic phase of his life when Elliot's youngest son, Jake, committed suicide. With this difficult phase, he managed to continue to scale and grow his business. Elliot set up a brighter day which helps teens and families battle stress, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Elliot is also a #1 Amazon bestseller author of Driven: How to Elevate Your Success as an Entrepreneur. Elliot is based in California, USA. If you're enjoying this content, do consider subscribing and you won't miss an episode. And you can also go to businessgrowthtalks.com for more information. Hello, Elliot. How are you today?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a very interesting area for me, wealth management, financial advice. When I was in a corporate environment, pretty much had my pension, and that was all I thought I needed. And when I started becoming a business owner, and it still continue the pension, but you don't get the contribution from the company as well. So it's significantly reduced. And it started to make me think, and it's something that I've gone on a journey pretty much from COVID times, thinking about retirement planning, legacy planning as well. And it's something that I've been thinking and I'm definitely over the last 12 months been structuring my finances for retirement as well as legacy planning as well. So I think this will be a really interesting conversation to hear your views on that. So welcome.
Great to be here.
As I ask all of my guests, the first question is always, what does a business mindset mean to you?
For a business mindset, it means coming to work every day. You're in the UK, I'm in the US. For us, football is everything. And I played football and ice hockey growing up. You're in a world of soccer and
Yes.
cricket and so forth. When you come to work, in sports, you come to play.
Yep.
You exercise, you come to practices knowing that you have a game on Sunday or Saturday. You get your head in a game, you clear your head out, and you do it. And in business, it's the same way. Can you come to work? Can you clear your head out? You're going to get bombarded in every possible side with everything that's going wrong, sometimes a lot more negative than positive. Can you clear out the clutter, focus on what's working, and do a better job today than you did yesterday?
So I brought up on sport as a child, as you say, soccer, rugby, as well as cricket as well. And one of the things that I went on my personal journey was I always thought, and definitely in sporting environments, it's a win-lose scenario. And one of the things that I needed to learn, that business is not always win-lose. Sometimes there can be win scenarios that you succeed and a colleague or another business or a partnership actually can be successful on that win scenario. Did you go through that phase where you thought everything was a win-lose?
You do for a while. I think every entrepreneur sets these unrealistic goals for themselves. Today, I want to be $1 billion company. Okay, so now you're a $10 million company. That makes you a loser because you're not $1 billion company. I want to be as wealthy and successful as Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. You're going to be guaranteed to be disappointed for the better part of your life. And so it's not that you need to settle, because that's a terrible word. I'm settling. And my mother from her grave would hit me in the back of the head if I used the word settle in life. But you also have to understand that what you're building has value, and it has intrinsic and extrinsic value that doesn't have to be compared with anything other than you and what you can build. So if I can build a $10 million, $100 million company, and I can sell it and retire one day and put in the bank $10 million for my family, am I a loser because I didn't put 20 million? So you have to think about that. You can win on different shades of gray
Yeah.
rather than black and white. I won versus lost.
What was that first million like for you? Try getting to that point of a million revenue or a million profitability, like that journey. They often say the first million is the hardest. Was that your experience as well?
I was very young. Mark, that's a great question. I was very fortunate that I started as an accountant for a big 8 accounting firm, and I was a terrible fit for me, and I left that. And with some family, we started the business, and it became an industrial packaging business. And we grew it from zero to basically $5 million in a
Wow.
very short order. The good news about that is I crossed the million mark. Friends were saying, you're crossing a million, you're crossing 2 million, you're doing amazing things. But I was chewing up cash at the same time.
Right.
And so it felt really good on one hand in my 20s from an ego and from no perspective at all that I was crossing a million and 2 million and 3 million.
Mm.
But the reality is that it was untempered and undisciplined.
Right.
Even though it felt great, I was burning through cash. And so it's a double-edged sword that you need to understand when you're growing. It's not just your ego that can be unchecked and feel good. You've got to have the back of your brain working and saying, am I growing in a smart way?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a number. What if you're worth $100 million and you're losing 120 million?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the profitability which is more important than a revenue number, isn't it? In most cases.
You and I, we talked about earlier about, studying motivational people. They'll be the first one to tell you, these high-end motivators, it's not what you make, it's what you're taking home. It's what you're putting in your family. It's what you're feeding or putting on the table at dinner. And so you don't want to be asset rich and cash poor.
Mm.
And I've been through that in my life.
Right.
And you don't want to be cash rich and asset poor, because then you have nothing sustainable. There's a balance in life. And as an entrepreneur, because you've got so many clients that are entrepreneurs, so many listeners.
Yeah.
The hardest part for an entrepreneur is the balance of life. And a balance, I look at it, Mark, is 3 ways. I have to balance out my business. Obviously, we're talking to business owners.
Yeah.
But I want to balance out my family and
Yeah.
my marriage at the same time. And you cannot do all those 3 things in one day. You can't. So you're always out of balance. So imagine I've got a very successful business, but I'm a personal disaster at home.
Mm.
Imagine I'm great with my family, but I can't get my business up and running. So I become a personal disaster there.
Mm.
It's hard to get it in balance. So that's the real challenge for an entrepreneur when they're young and growing, is how do I keep my life in balance so it doesn't eat me up and I can be in front of it.
Yeah, balance is something that's very popular at the moment, like this work-life balance idea. And I was doing some reading and research actually on this, and in the UK anyway, this idea of work-life balance wasn't a thing till the 90s over here, where women, and this is no criticism of women, but women wanted to have the career and kids at the same time. So this idea of work-life balance emerged. Beforehand, it was the men went out to work and worked 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever their work needed, and the women were working at home. Do you think something that I was thinking about with this is it's a constant tweaking. You're tweaking a little bit further on your family, which takes a little bit away from your business. Then you need to tweak it to do a little bit more of the business because you need the money. You need to get a way of being able to tweak them rather than a sort of like 60% is this and 40% is that. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. It's a daily struggle to keep your life in balance every single day of the week. That's a really big challenge for the entrepreneur every day of the week, Mark. I think I struggle with it. I work hard doing it. My wife is super tolerant of what I do and super accepting of it. And she reminds me, hey, we've got to be in balance. I try to check that with some really positive vacations so we get some private time. I bring my computer on vacation because as an entrepreneur, we're always working. But I just came back from Hawaii, where I go there every December, and I didn't open my computer even once.
Excellent.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Imagine, my brother came with me, who's an attorney, and he does large transactions. He wants to look at that computer every day and work on stuff. So different work-life balance.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
I'll tell you a few things about it, if that's okay, Mark.
Yeah, go for it.
My mother was an Auschwitz survivor, World War II. She's from your continent. She's from Vienna, and sadly got caught up in World War II. And she was one of those people that constantly reminded her children, you can do better. You can achieve more in life. And so if I got a 90 on a test, she would ask me, did anybody get a 95? If I got a 95, she'd say, anybody get 100? If I got 100, she'd say, how many people got 100? And so there's a little voice, mom's dead a long time now, 25 years. There's a little voice that says you can do better today than you did yesterday. That's my mother. My father, he was part of the greatest generation, born in the US in Newark, New Jersey. And he had lots of struggles. He did not have an easy life. He had what I call a zigzag line of life where it was really hard. And he was a small business owner. And I think he was very successful for what he did. But from a monetary standpoint, never really got ahead in what he did. But he taught us two really huge value propositions. One is you can never make up for hard work.
Right.
You can't. You can't work 10 hours a week and expect 50 hours a week of success. You just can't do that. That was him. And the other part that he taught us was to always give back. Charity. So even when he wasn't making money, we'd have to go help family members that were doing even worse than him. And we'd build bicycles on weekends at a bike shop for a family member. We'd go unload packages for somebody else. We'd go help with people with carrying groceries in for neighbors where they couldn't carry themselves, because that's what you did as a good neighbor. And so even my entire professional and adult life, I've been involved with charities of all types, not just the one that foundation I run today.
Yeah.
But charities of all types have always been important because giving back is just who I am.
That's amazing. And I think that's a really interesting and nice balance, that sort of constant striving for better, but equally being able to give back as well. I think it's commendable that you've been able to balance those influences. And obviously you've had a business that's had $300 million in assets that you're looking at after other people. It worked, obviously, the way your parents brought you up.
It did work. I think we're just crossing the $400 million mark right now.
Amazing.
And I imagine in 24 months, we'll be at $500 million, moving up really fast. We're very fortunate in our business that we've had 3 straight years of double-digit growth.
Even after COVID, because I suppose COVID, how were you affected by COVID through that period?
We did very well during COVID. Again, fortunate. Sometimes things work out. As I say, sometimes luck is better than brains. We have that phrase. In 2019, before COVID, we had been doing lots of marketing as a company. I've always been a strong marketing-oriented person.
Yeah.
And we've been piecemealing it together, using outside services. When somebody did web development, somebody did web marketing, somebody did email marketing, somebody did direct mail marketing, all these pieces. And in 2019, I got very frustrated, saying, I'm sick and tired of all this outsourcing. I want to bring it in-house and hire my own marketing department, something not being done much in our industry.
Yeah.
And I did it. I brought it all in-house, and as they're all in place wondering what to do, COVID hit. And we all got locked out, and I had a marketing department in place ready to go.
Right.
And we created a Zoom program called Meet the Expert with Elliot Kallan that is now in the top 2% of financial podcasts globally. I wrote a book, then I wrote a second book called Driven. We are all over the internet. And then we just took our charity, Brighter Day, and we just really brought it to a whole new level on top of that. And that all happened because in 2019, prior to COVID, I was frustrated and went internal with my marketing.
And how have you managed to, because one of the components for building and scaling a business is keeping talent, keeping your best people. How have you managed, in reference to the marketing, but equally across the board to the people that you employ, how have you managed to keep your best people?
Well, that's a really tough question for entrepreneurs. So my cost of doing business just in the last 3 years has skyrocketed, just skyrocketed. So margins are thinner and costs are higher. That's a bad formula, but that's the reality. I'm in California. California pays silly salaries out to people for talent. There's just nobody to hire. So my receptionist, and she's really much more than that. She's an administrator. She's my personal assistant. She's making $85,000 a year. And my other company that I am partners with in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, their person's making $12 an hour.
Wow.
Same job. And so it's really very different. So you got to pay people, but you got to create a culture that people want to stay here. Because even if you pay people a lot of money and you're toxic, they're going to leave you.
100%. And when I've been asking this question about culture and about keeping talent, creating an environment that isn't toxic, is able to embrace and empower and help people move along their careers and get more experience, things like that. These are the things that are coming up more and more, because I think the workforce kind of expects it a little bit more from their employer, which 20 years ago when I started my career, having a job and having an expectation of maybe a job for life or building a career in a particular area, I think the change in workforce has really meant that people expect much more from their employers. What's your feelings on that experience?
We live, Mark, in a fungible workforce now. It's not hard to
Mm,
get a job. In the US, there's a low unemployment rate. You want to go get a job tomorrow, you can probably find it pretty quickly.
mm,
So it's too easy to lose people. You've got to work harder to keep them, make it fun, make it exciting.
mm.
In California, sadly, you can't tell a joke at work anymore
Yeah,
because you certainly can't say anything ethnic. And we joke a little bit in his office and we ask people, are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? I get it. Sometimes we're not politically correct. We don't make it personal
yeah,
but we try to make it fun where everybody feels like they're comfortable just being them
yeah,
and not in a sterile environment.
yeah,
So I don't want to
absolutely.
be in an office that's plain vanilla.
Yeah,
I don't want to be in vanilla and I don't want to be in chocolate. I want to be in butter pecan, where it's more interesting to live.
yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you to start the business as a wealth advisor?
So in 1993 or 92, I was in the environmental cleanup business. And that market was coming to an end. The super fund money in the US was basically gone. I knew I needed to make a change in that market. And so I began to look, I had an accounting background. I began to look at finance and I thought, I'm going to take my financial hat and I want to do something there for business owners. I want my target market to be business owners. And what do business owners need? They need business succession help. They need wealth planning help. They need family wealth help. They need insurance help. They need various help in different buckets of their business. And I
Mm,
thought that originally that's what that would be. And I met with all the usual players, the Merrill Lynch's and the Lincoln Financials
yeah,
back in New Jersey where I was living. And I didn't see anything I liked. I looked in Atlanta. Also, I looked in Florida. I didn't see anything I liked. And my wife at that time got pregnant with our twins and she was from California. And she said, let's move back. And I said, bring me the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle. This is before the internet days.
right.
Let me see what's going on. And there was an ad in there for Lincoln Financial. And the guy, I called him up and he said he was from the Bronx, New York. We both had
Right.
that same silly accent. We both said coffee talk and water and things like that.
Yeah.
And we talked. And then I came in, I met with him for 8 hours in an
Wow.
interview. And he said, you want to run a business division for us and create one out of the blue? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And because I'm a B2B guy, much more than a B2C guy. And he let me do it. And I stayed there for 6 years and they were super helpful. And we built a heck of a business together. And then their markets changed and people were retiring that were all there. And we separated out and became our own entity at that point. And we've always been in the B2B style business. We still do lots of B2C, but primarily B2B.
And what do you think that gave you the confidence to be able to go out on your own? Because there's a challenge that I had. I'd worked in corporate for 13 years, and being able to then take that step to do your own thing, for me as a 40-year-old, when I did it, was massive because I had kids and wife, and I had to make sure that I still was able to provide, etc. But what gave you that confidence to say I can actually strike out and I can actually make this a success on my own back?
So this is a third company, Mark, that I've started. And so I understand what it takes to get it going. It takes massive amount of effort. You're moving a boat from 0 to 30 knots.
Yeah.
It takes massive amounts of effort. To stay at 30 takes less effort, less fuel than it is to go from 0 to 30.
Yeah.
No difference than getting a rocket off the ground. Most of the fuel is used in the first 10 feet,
Yeah.
to get it off the ground. And so I already understood that part of it. So I knew this was going to happen. I also knew that from a personal standpoint, I'm probably not the most employable person out there because
What's
I
that?
think like an entrepreneur. I'm an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right.
And entrepreneurs think differently.
Mm.
They think about building all the time.
Yeah.
We're always in the middle of the night, 2 a.m, we're building something in our brains. We're doing that. Versus the employee that sleeps better at night and comes to work the next day and just continues where they left off yesterday.
Mm. Mm.
I knew that was going to happen. And then because the team that I built had come to me and said, it's time for us to leave and be on our own. And so if I had said no at that point, then they would have left me. So I felt like, okay, they're right. It's time. Let's do it. Now, I didn't know when I did that in the late 90s and 2000, I didn't know at the same time that I'd be getting a divorce and that we'd have Y2K. The markets would crash. The NASDAQ in the US would just get stalled completely and be down by 40% in a matter of months. All those things happened at the exact same moment. And I was living on credit cards for a short period of time.
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't easy to do, but we kept the vision. And then look what happened 20 years later. It took a while to get there, and it took a lot of people around me saying, don't give up. And I knew in my heart, going through the adversity at work, adversity at home, on a marital level, I knew that I was doing the right thing, but I don't want to tell you that it was easy, because easy is not in the rule book for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree. That idea of not really being able to switch off, and you can have family time and you can be focused on that and be present in that, but your mind is always thinking, whether it's a marketing, a sale, an operations, a delivery side, whatever your area that you're looking at, it's very hard to switch off. And I don't think, after being on both sides, there are some people that are made for entrepreneurship. They think outside the box, they think in a different way. And there's some people that are very happy to be an employee and have that security. Although we talk about security, and but in industries like 0708, in the finance industry, was massively impacted. And I felt that even with a secure job, there's not always total security, is there? So it's like that, this is why entrepreneurship has, I think, become a lot more popular in the last sort of 10-15 years, is because of the insecurity in the job market as well.
If you want to think about, you're right, Mark. If you want to think about job security, entrepreneurs don't think about job security, because we don't think in terms of the union thought, or I've got a job for life, because you're building. And so you're building, and hopefully you put together an end game as an entrepreneur, but maybe you know in your heart, at some point you will have an end game. Nature might make you have an end game, or you might create an end game, but you're going to have an end game here. So, but I think from today's time, it's a very entrepreneurial environment that we live in, which is just fabulous, especially with technology and Zoom. And there's so many great tools that weren't available just 20 years ago, 50 years ago, both out of necessity and out of the environment. We're able to be more entrepreneurial. But I want you to think about the 1950s for a moment, late 40s, post World War II.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in the UK that happened in the US, is all the men came home from war and there were not enough jobs for any of them. You ousted Winston Churchill. We had all types of problems in the US. And so if you didn't start, excuse me, if you didn't start your own business, you weren't going to get a job, or you were going to get a factory job that was going to be unsatisfying. And that's the environment we live in today. Do I want to work for somebody else? Do I want to hitch a wagon to a star? Maybe that's a really good star, and that is a good thing to do, because now being a CIO and a CFO are good things to be. You're not just line workers. They're very good things to be. Or do I want to work for somebody else and, so to speak, let the man rule me in the old days like they had in those days? And that just doesn't feel good to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're definitely in an environment that is encouraging entrepreneurship. But one of my biggest frustrations it happens in the UK a lot, is when our governments are thinking, and I don't want to get too political, but it's more about governments as a whole. Governments do not encourage, in the UK anyway, entrepreneurship. They will support and they will encourage large companies to come into the UK because they think there's larger tax bills from having these big multinationals coming into the UK. But one of the big frustrations for me is that there's not enough tax breaks. There's not enough encouragement for individuals to start businesses. Being in the wealth business, what's your thoughts on government's decisions on entrepreneurship?
It's very funny. Tax is a tool in the US government. It's the same way in Europe. Just think for a moment, right next door to you is Ireland. And Ireland is a haven for American corporations, probably for European corporations too, right? Apple's basically Apple headquarters is on Ireland.
Yeah.
It's a corporate 50, it's 0 or 15% tax rate in Ireland. You max out at 15. We max out much higher. You're even higher than us right now.
Yeah.
So if you're a business that's starting to get very successful and money is fungible, why not move it to some place that's less taxable, less taxes to you,
Yeah.
more money for you to keep? We all do that. I'm in California. I think California has a terrible tax system going on out here. We have a corporate rate, an individual rate, a federal rate, a death tax. We're everything that just messes you up in California. And the UK has been like that for a long time. But go back not too long ago, with Margaret Thatcher, look what she did to the tax rate and to the nationally owned companies there. She made them think like entrepreneurs. And I relish the day, and I look forward to the day that the people who are back in office can think, how do we make it easier to start a business and grow a business and stay here? If here is the UK, if here is France, and here is the US, stay here, employ here, and succeed here. And that's how you should be thinking.
Yeah, 100% agree. Do you think tax is a moral issue?
I don't know. I think there are people who would argue that both sides. I don't know if it's moral or immoral. If you're paying 70 out of every 100 cents to the government, that's the country of Israel, as an example, 70% actually. Is the government immoral for taking 70 cents, or are they just carrying out the people's wishes because they are elected people to have it done? Now, if you're in the old world where you've got a king and the king says, this is what I'm taxing you, and there's no say, you're being immoral no matter what the number is, because people have no say. But we're electing those people. You're electing people in the UK, you're electing people in France and Germany, in the US and Canada. And then the people that are there are surprising you by raising the tax rate. We elected them. It's our own fault.
I suppose that the essence of the question was more because some people, and this is not always a political spectrum thing, but some people feel that you should pay the taxes that are due. And then there's a different mindset, which is you should pay the taxes that are required by the government. So if there is a loophole, if there's a tax break that you know about that someone else doesn't know about, some people that have experienced this feel that you should pay all of the tax you're due rather than what you are required by the legislation to pay.
I think that, this in the US, look, if I'm Apple Computer, I am looking for, or I'm Donald Trump, or I'm any successful large entity. I am looking for every possible loophole I can find. I have a battery of accountants who are finding them for me. But if I'm Elliot Kallan, taxpayer in a small business, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
So they pay, I think Apple at the end of the day pays less in taxes than I pay, my company pays. And there's a lot of immorality in that. They're not paying their fair share, but that's the environment that we've created here. If we want to fix that, we can fix it. I think it should be fixed. I'd like to see us have somewhere where, whether it's the UK or Ireland or the US, it's a comparable tax rate. So it becomes a non-issue of looking for these loopholes.
And making it simpler. Like the fact that they encourage these loopholes to be found is because they're making it hugely complicated, which means that you do need the accountants or the tax advisors to be able to go and find those loopholes. So if they literally just simplified it, I think that would solve a lot of issues as well.
It seems like accountants have a self-fulfillment, full job employment program, like helping to lobby to create loopholes. Lawyers and accountants are the ones writing the laws, especially lawyers. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're here to stay no matter what.
Yeah. Agreed. Look, I'm going to change tack slightly. So tell me about your son, Jake, and his tragic suicide. What actually happened?
Jake was 19 when he took his life. He was a sophomore at the University of Montana out here. No drugs, no alcohol, just depression. I didn't see it. His mom didn't see it. He didn't share that with people. On a Thursday, late Thursday night, early Friday morning, he walked up to the highway, waited for a truck to come by and jumped in front of it. And we were frantically looking for him that Friday because his phone was turned off, and no teenager turns off their phone, Mark.
Yeah.
And so we were leaving him messages, give us a call when you turn us on. And at 6:30 at night, Federal Express showed up with a 6-page suicide note. He had already been dead, and it was a John Doe in the hospital.
Right.
And so we began the process of going up, getting his body, bringing it back for burial. And it's a horrible, tragic story. But in his suicide note, Mark, the first main paragraph, he wrote, "Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I never would have told you how I felt. I never would have asked for your help, and I never would have taken your help." And I must have read that on the way home from Montana with his body under the plane a couple dozen times. And I turned to his mom and I said, "We've got to do something to stop other families from feeling this devastation and destruction that we're just beginning to go through."
Right.
And we started a Brighter Day charity. It is a charity, 501c3 in the US charity. It's at a brighterday.info. And what we did, we created resources for teens and their families on stress and depression with the goal of stopping teen suicide. So fast forward 8 years now, because he's gone just shy of 9 today. We now touch 5,000 families a month on 3 continents with our resources. And those resources include 24-hour texting, 7-day-a-week therapy sessions for free that we created for teens and families. Our website is loaded with resources people like to read for teens and their families: a teen survival toolkit, a parent survival toolkit, what you should be talking about with your children, suggestions on how to have conversations, the right conversations with your children, not just how was your day, and you get a 16-year-old boy or 17-year-old boy who shrugs his shoulder like a caveman and says monosyllabic words like "fine" or "good," and you're not any smarter, and you think, "Okay, I don't know anything." To really ask the in-depth questions about their friends and their courses and what's going on in their head that you and I don't have to ask, or I never had to ask my kids. And my parents never asked me even once those deep questions. They're busy. They were busy. How's school? Fine. Okay. That was the answer. But now today, with more than almost half the children in the US in high school have checked a box that said at one time or not, they've either felt very depressed or suicidal. And I bet the UK is no different than that.
I agree.
That you've got to dig to head this off. And of course, I wish I did that because I lost my son. And I'm not sure anything I would have done would have changed that. And I can't change it anyway. But you've got to be better. And that's what that charity does. abrighterday.info on the website.
Incredible. Incredible. I never went through suicidal thoughts. That's not necessarily something that I tick boxed. I do think there are a lot of people, and we employed some, and we talk to people and friends and family and things like that have teenagers. Mine are only 7 and 9. My kids are 2 girls, 7 and 9.
Those are fabulous ages.
They are. I think it's going to get harder. I was talking to someone today and they said girls get harder the older they get. So I'll keep you posted. But it is a subject and mental health is something that people are talking more about. I do feel that it's a subject which is being discussed now, where, like, when I grew up, mental health wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a subject that was really discussed. What do you think has changed to be able to make that a better and more evolved conversation that you can have with teens?
I think the good news about this is we are entering the heyday of understanding mental health. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because even when 8 years ago, just when my son took his life, we had a lot of questions from people around us, including clergy and professionals, that said, how do you want us to talk about this? And we said right away, we want to be forthright because we want to help other people. We don't want to hide. But even today, people say they're embarrassed at suicide. My parents' friends, their daughter took her life in the garage. Nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about why. Growing up, I never understood the why. I understood what, but not the why. And I think we understand today that mental health, whether it be celebrities talking about it, or musicians talking about it, or you and I are having this conversation, or I'm writing a book where chapter 6 is dedicated to mental health in a book driven. We are talking about mental health And so the charity that we do is a little narrower than just mental health, because mental health is very broad.
Yeah.
We talked about depression and stress and
Okay.
suicide. Mental
Yeah.
health can be frontal lobe disorders and being on the spectrum of autism, all that.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I'm a parent who lost a child and talks about it every day. I'm not a PhD or an MBA and master's in mental health, but I think you and I are having this discussion, and your parents group is having this discussion, and
Yeah.
that's who we're creating resources for. And that's fabulous that we're talking about it. And hopefully over the next 10 years, we continue to talk about it. And by talking about it more, we can drive down the suicide rate. And we could also get your children who maybe when they're 16 or 17 or 15, when they need to talk to a professional, you could see it ahead of time and be in front of the issue rather than someone like me who got behind the issue and couldn't recover.
How do you manage running businesses, running the charity as well? It must be quite difficult. How do you work out your day on do you prioritize certain things in certain times of the week, or because I'm really interested that it's a very huge subject and there's so many different aspects. And I know you said you target more depression and anxiety and suicide thoughts, but how do you manage your day when you've got business competition idea things going on as well as the charity time?
Mark, that's a great question. And my staff asks me that question every day. How are we doing this? And I'm like we talked about earlier in the show, I'm out of balance every day as well. There are days very dedicated to the charity and not enough time in the business of Prosperity Financial Group. There are days where I spend all of it in Prosperity and none of it in the charity. Sometimes on Saturday mornings, I come in and I just work in the mornings, and it helps me with a clear head with nobody here to do what I need to do to get everything done, particularly on the charity on those days.
Mm.
I think you just have to find a way to balance it out. It's always going to be out of balance. They are both 40-hour-a-week jobs.
Mhm.
I can't work 80 hours a week and be effective at what I do. I just had someone call me yesterday. I was driving home and he sent me a series of emails and texts saying, Elliot, I just found your website. I think your story about your child is amazing. I'm so amazed on what you've done. I want you to know that my son took his life a year ago. I'm still struggling with it. And here's his memorial. And he was 19. He played baseball and they're very religious. And he talks about my son is now in God's outfield and so forth. And then he said, but I want you, his mom couldn't handle it. And 6 months ago, she took her life too.
Oh.
And I called him. We talked on the phone yesterday. And of course, that's just horrible. There are no words that you can say there.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about it. And that's just something you have to go through. If you're going to be committed to that charity, you have to be willing to go through that and put yourself out there. And it's painful.
Yeah.
And you're reliving the pain over and over. And it's like a scab. You just keep pulling it. You just keep pulling it. You just keep pulling it. So I've accepted on the charity that I can change lives. Let me change that. We can change lives by allowing that scab to be pulled and to be naked with our emotions to help other people.
Yeah, that's
And
incredible.
on business, it's totally different. Our business is about trust and motivation and doing the right thing and growing every day. So they are slightly different, but they overlap.
I'll say this at the end, but it's an incredible charity that you've set up. I'd not heard of it before I started the research, but I think it's an incredible thing you're doing, and many plaudits to you, and I hope it grows and grows. What is the element of adversity, and that can be personal or professional, when you're dealing with business? Like when I was doing some research, you'd said something, or it was in the notes that you felt that adversity is a positive for business and can really help business owners and people. What's your view on adversity and how it affects people personally as well as professionally?
Mark, adversity is just you're being attacked from multiple sides. So again, let me do, if I could, a sports metaphor.
Of course.
Okay. And I want to be the quarterback in football. I want to be in rugby. I want to be the team leader.
Yeah.
There are people who want my job, no matter what. There are people who are very talented that want my job. There are people that can do what I do that want my job. And so that adversity, internally for me as an entrepreneur, means I've got to bring my best. bring my A game to the table.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't do that every day. You're human. That's just not real. But that's what adversity does. So adversity either makes you grow because you like the fact that you like competition and you want to be better at it, or adversity makes you shrink. Oh my goodness, these people are too good for me. That's a personality thing that's unique to you. Lots of people don't like adversity. They just want to go through life and just, they're okay with it. And then there are people like me, maybe we have a type of mental illness ourselves, who say the harder it is, the more I have to get pie spinning on a stick on any given day, the better I do. The more that's on my plate, the more I thrive on that. And that's what I think of adversity is. I've got lots of things to do. Some of it's very complicated. Some of it's can even painful, and some of it's just easy. Let's get it done. But that's adversity. So adversity brings out the best in people all the time. It's like a competition. As a sports nut, I think it brings out the best in athletes all the time. And you can see it on the field. I know as a soccer and a rugby fan that you are. Adversity bring out the best in players.
Yeah.
They just do. And when they get into the playoffs and they get into championship series, they're just at their very best.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to be as a business owner. And if you're in a championship series or the playoffs every day of the week, let your best come out.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I definitely agree that there are some people that are, I think people are wired to see adversity as a challenge that they need to overcome. Some people shy away from it and they'll never make bold steps or bold decisions to be able to be successful. So I 100% agree. I think adversity in whatever side, like resilience to be able to bounce back from adversity is and using a sports metaphor, like you've got people that won the championship or won the Super Bowl last year, like Kansas City Chiefs, and they're struggling a little bit this year. You've got Patrick Mahomes there who has been through adversity and is able to overcome that because he's proved it before. But I think you need key people, like you mentioned, like the quarterback or the star player. You need those people to be able to lead the team forward. And in your situation, you're leading your company and your charity forward because you're making the direction, making the decisions that are going to impact both of them.
So if you're talking to business owners, just think every business owner out there at some point in time has cash flow issues.
Yeah.
They have lines of credit issues at bank, maybe banking relationship issues. They have accounts receivables issues and how to manage that, how to manage cash flow coming in the company. They have accounts payable issues. They owe a lot of money to a lot of people on that. They have lines of credit issue on doing that. They have business expansion issues. They have personnel issues, massive amounts of personnel issues. Because if you have people working for you, you have personnel issues.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I've had them my whole life. You just have them. People are hard. It's hard to work with other people than yourself. And because your expectations are your expectations, and they're only human. They don't have your expectations.
Yeah.
And
they don't have
think
the
you're
skin
being
in the game
unrealistic.
as much.
Yeah. And so you got to balance that out. And those are the challenges you have every day in business. And you either can run from them, in which case you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, or you can dive into them head first and tackle them. And if you're smart, you'll get the help you need because you can't all do it by yourself. And it might be a consultant, it might be getting good people around you, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then bringing out your best and maybe even changing personnel so you get all your horses pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
That's a real challenge.
Yeah, it is. What's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years for you, Elliot?
So I love what I do, and I get asked that all the time, Mark. Where am I going with this? I imagine in 5 years, I'm probably going to step aside from my company. For the charity, I want my charity to be self-reliant without my involvement, which means it's a national charity without me having to do anything. That would mean I've succeeded and create a sustainable charity. For the company, I'd like the company to continue, maybe begin to pass along the ownership of the company to the next generation of people. They won't be related to me. There'll be new people. I don't have family in the business. But we've created a brand here, prosperityfinancialgroup.com, Prosperity. It's a great brand, means a lot to a lot of people. I'd hate to see that disappear, but nature is going to make me do something about it if I don't, and I want to be in front of it.
Yeah.
My wife asked me the question. She said, Elliot, what would you do in retirement? And I said, that's an easy question to answer. She said, what? I said, I'd start another company because that's what I do. And she said, what would you do? I said, I already picked out the other company. I'm going to start a food, travel, and leisure business.
Right.
You know, with writing, and
Amazing.
we're going to go different places in the world, and we're going to write about it, and we're
Yeah.
going to sell advertising and so forth. She said, how many hours a week are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, 30 or 40. Maybe you just sort of keep doing what you're doing for a while then.
Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. What's the best decision that you've made?
Oh, the best decision I've ever made, I would say get married again. I got divorced, tough time, children, three babies, 6 and 5. But I'm a firm believer in family and family values and developing a core strength. So in order to keep myself grounded, I found the right person.
Yeah, amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Never give up. You know, that's that's a Winston Churchill phrase. Never give up. Never, with a finger pointing. Never give up. We did that in the U.S. But one thing I've learned, there's in the old Rocky movie, Rocky the Fighter, with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that he uses in one of the movies, and I think he's talking to his son in one of those Rocky 500s or whatever series he made.
Yeah.
Was, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being an entrepreneur is agreeing to get your nose bloodied, agreeing to get your punched in the face every now and then.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali also said, oh no, Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
And so when you get back up, because you will have failures in your life. And entrepreneurs, we don't call them failures. We call these valuable learning lessons.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have them. Are you willing to get back up? And even though some people will say, see, I told you, of course this happened to you. I could have told you this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You're going to have those families. You're going to have those relatives.
Yeah.
Friends. But if you can get back up and dust yourself off and say, I could still make this work, I'm going to make it work, then you are truly an entrepreneur who enjoys adversity and is willing to see it through.
Yeah. Who's helped you most in your career?
Oh my goodness, I've had so many people that have been there for me. But I would say my family has been my big cheerleaders. It's a cheerleader thing. My wife is a big cheerleader of mine. My son was a twin, he and my daughter, the twins, they're just, Dad, you've done amazing things. And they're my best cheerleaders and they're my harshest critics all at the same time.
Yeah. You need that in your family. You need, because I, as an entrepreneur, I always think things are half full and I'll look for opportunities to be able to do. And one of the great things about my wife is she brings in a healthy cynicism. When's the next pay, or not paycheck? When's the next money coming in? How is that? And you do need in your life that counterbalance. If you're a little bit more cynical, you need someone to lift you up. If you're a little bit more optimistic, you need someone just to keep your feet on the ground as well. Definitely, family can help you with that. Yeah,
it does help.
Tell me about a regret that you have.
My other than the personal tragedy, obviously that would be, and everything related to that. But a business regret would be that in my 20s, when I had this company that was growing so fast and burning through cash, I didn't have the business experience and the savvy to understand that how can I be growing at a 30% net profit, 28% net profit, which is staggering. After tax net profit in the 20s is a pretty huge number.
So,
how can I be growing and running out of cash all the time? I didn't understand that. So I wish I hired a CFO who understood cash flow management, to help me as a young budding entrepreneur to say something, I love what you're doing. Let's put the brakes on this. Let's go get some venture capital money. Let's put a cash infusion in your company. And let's talk about the burn ratio. Those are all things as an entrepreneur today we understand because of high tech talks about burn ratio and cash flow. But in my 20s, we didn't have any of those conversations and I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah. What are you most proud of? Can't say your family. We've mentioned family. Something else that you're proud of?
I would say both companies, I'm really proud of where we've come from. We're in the top % of financial advisory companies in the United States, top 3,
Amazing.
top 4%, top 5%, whatever the number is, size-wise of companies in the US. It's pretty staggering.
Yeah,
I've got a very loyal client base, not just an employee base, but people that really love us. I get compliments every single week from clients who see me on TV. We're everywhere. That's really great. I've got some great employees. They do amazing things. And then the charity touches lives in ways that are just amazing. So I think even though I've lost a son, I think have no reason to complain about my life because it has been a very fortunate and blessed life, not to get religious here, but
No, it's
a
fine.
very fortunate life in spite of the pain and the agony of losing a child, but then doing something about it
Mm,
that's unique all by itself. So I am very fortunate to have touched others who have touched me as well.
yeah, that's incredible. Why do you do what you do?
I love what I do. You
Good
got to wake
answer.
up. You got to wake up and love what you do and be passionate about something. It's very easy to be passionate when you're helping people. And at a business level, I'm helping people, whether it be retired or manage money or do something better with their money in their life. And we don't just manage the money, Mark. We talk about the purpose of the money has to have purpose. In the United States, the average senior watches 4 to 6 hours a day of television. That's a pretty horrible
That's a lot.
statistic.
Yeah.
If I can get that elderly person, a senior person going into retirement or in retirement to understand about developing hobbies and doing things and traveling more and seeing family more, whatever is important to them,
Yeah.
and I can help them hone that in as a real skill for them, then I've done much more than just manage money. And we do that every day.
That's incredible. And we have touched on this, but it's one of the questions. What does legacy mean to you?
So legacy is a great word. I'm a big fan of that. We do a lot of legacy planning as part of our business, but what's going to happen to your money when you're gone?
Right.
So if you're running a business and you're what do I call in a phase 3 of your business, which means that I'm a little bit older, the business is a little bit more mature. Maybe it's time maybe my legacy is to hand the business down to my children, which doesn't work most of the time, by the way.
Yeah.
Probably 9 out of 10 situations, that's a terrible decision. And we talk about that too. Maybe it's selling it. Your kids want your money. They don't want your business most of the time. They want your results, not your effort.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you to hand that down to your children? Does that mean creating a charity? Does that mean putting a name with your charity, putting a building on a hospital, wing on a hospital? What do you want to happen in years to come when you're not here? The impact that you want to have. Most times we live in a world, Mark, and I know the UK and the US, and particularly California for me, it's a me world. It's me, I come first. It's all about me and my needs. And you tap yourself on the chest and about me. And I think the world is bigger than that. And if you can get out of the me world and think about the we world, what's in it for us collectively, that we can leave the next generation better than ourselves. And I know as a father, you want to leave your 2 children better off than you got. And I certainly do. You're going to think outside the box of you. And that's what we try to teach our clients if they're so inclined.
That's incredible. And where should people go if they want to find more about you, your charity, or your business?
So the business is at www.prosperityfinancialgroup.com. The charity is at abrighterday.info or .org. They both work. They can look at them. There's nothing for sale on either one of them. I guess the book is for sale somewhere on there. You'll see that. But there's nothing for sale on a charity. It's just great stuff on both of them. Tons of resources. They're all free. We spend a lot of money developing our web services for people, probably more than most companies in our financial industry, because we want to create resources for people that they can look at it. We just came up with a women's guide to success, which we think is a little bit unique in the industry. That's going to be available on our website all through January, right through Valentine's Day, and finish with a dinner on February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, just for women, where we're bringing several speakers on female success and women's success and how is that defined. You talked originally about the family getting more pressure on them. That really started in the US in the 60s and 70s, what I call the old Virginia Slims commercials, that baby, you can have it all. That turned out to be not true. You can't have it all. Because you can't balance all of it on any given day. No one can.
No one
and
can.
So that's the challenge that we have 50 years later, is how do you balance life? And we do. In this case, we put it on our website every day.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you so much for your time. I think you're doing so much important work. It is truly inspiring that you've been able to juggle so many adversities and be able to come out the other end. And what you said a little while ago, that you feel blessed to have the life that you've led. Obviously, you've had difficult times. I think you're winning. I think genuinely you're winning because you're doing stuff for yourself, for your family, and for other people with the charity. So just thank you so much for being on my show today.
Well, thank you, Mark, and it's nicely said. I appreciate it.
Cheers. So these are my thoughts after speaking to Elliot. As some of you that have listened to the show for a while, you know that mental health is a very important aspect of the show, of what I try and do and try and help people in that sphere. Um, I just think it's a really tragic, but how he was able to turn his life around and be able to help so many people. As he said, from a business point of view, he's helping people with wealth, legacy, retirement. On the charity side, he's doing so much to be able to help people. I would urge anyone, on a serious note, if anyone is suffering in their teenage years or they've got children that are in their teenage years, do go to the website, do look it up, see if there's some help there. I'm sure there will be plenty of sort of videos and blogs and support that his charity can help you or your child. It's something that needs to be talked about. He's absolutely right on the conversation. We are going into a period, hopefully it is a golden period of mental health where we can open up and share with people and talk to people, whether they're therapists, whether they're family, whether they're charities, that are all there to help you. So please don't suffer on your own. Equally, something I've mentioned before, if you know someone that you think might be struggling, or maybe you haven't heard from them from a while, just pick up the phone, send a text message, say, hi, how are you? It really makes a difference. It really makes a difference. So do think about that, whether it's your child, whether it's you, whether it's friends that you've not heard from. Just pick up the phone, say hello, see how they're doing. It can make a huge difference. So please, everyone, think about that that's listening or watching this show. And from a wealth advisor, I think he's got, like, the amount of assets that he is looking after is astonishing. And he's built that business over a long time, but he's now a really established business in that area. I think he's doing incredible things there. So equally, if you're in America that you need that sort of support, think about going to Elliot. And yeah, it's been a very emotional podcast. It's something that for me is very important. And I just think let's all just keep talking. Let's all keep sharing, telling people how they feel. And hopefully we can conquer, or at least take a huge bite out of all those people that are suffering. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate you. And on to the next one.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.